Hello everyone, this is Ankit Jain. I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. Today is day 21 of our LWC Bootcamp. In today's session, we will discuss more about how we can do the conditional rendering in LWC. Conditional rendering means display your components conditionally on the Lightning Web Component. Moreover, we will also discuss the different looping mechanisms that we do have in the LWC. How we can use the for each, how we can use the iterator, and when we should go and use which type of looping mechanism. Next, we will discuss about the query selector as well as the LWC refs as well. How you can go and select the components from the DOM by using the query selector and by using the LWC ref. Moreover, we will also explore how we can apply the dynamic CSS by using the query selector as well. So let's get started. Before we get started, a quick intro about me. My name is Ankit Jain. I do have more than 10 years of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem. I got an opportunity to work on the different clouds, including the sales, service, CPQ, billing, as well as financial services cloud. And I do have my expertise on the Lightning Web Component as well as on the integration. So in case you folks like to connect with me, these are the different channels which are available. You will get the you will get the links of all these channels in the video description as well. So let's get started with the first thing. What is conditional rendering? As I said, conditional rendering means whenever you have to go and display your components conditionally. If any condition has been true, then and then only you have to go and display the component, then we'll go for the conditional rendering. So how to use the conditional rendering? To use the conditional rendering, you will go and specify here LWC if. Within the template tag, you will specify the LWC if. And if this property is truthify, in the JavaScript, we already discussed about the truthify and the falsy, right? So here, if this is truthify, then and then only my component will be rendered. Otherwise, you can go and check for another condition as well. So you can check for the primary condition. After that, you can check for another condition. This is somewhat similar that we do in the Apex, right? We go and write down the if. After that, we go and write down the else if. In the else if, we go and put another condition. Once all the else if has been evaluated and nothing is coming out true, then in the end, LWC else will execute. Similar kind of a pattern we also have in the LWC as well. In case you guys are got a chance to work on any of the legacy code, previously we don't have this LWC if. It is again a very recent introduction from the Salesforce to do the conditional rendering. The old syntax for the LWC if is if true and the false. If you got if you guys got a chance to go over any of the legacy code and you find out that the code is using the if true and false, it's one and the same thing that we are doing here with the LWC if and the LWC else if. But for the new code, Salesforce do recommend that we should not use if true and false. However, we should use the LWC if, LWC else if, as well as the LWC else. Okay, so LWC if, as I mentioned, it's a new version which supersedes the legacy version. To overcome this legacy version, we do have this LWC if version here. Next thing here is after the LWC if, we can use the LWC else if. Again, the key point about the LWC else if here is you cannot use LWC else if individually. It must be preceded by the LWC if. It must be preceded by the LWC if or any other LWC else if. And next, LWC else, it must be preceded either by the LWC if or by the LWC else if. You cannot use both LWC else or LWC else if individually. Okay, let's go and see with one demo how we can use the conditional rendering in the Lightning Web Component. Again, like we do every time, we'll go and create one small component just to understand the concept, and we will use this small concepts in our mini project to build the complex components as well, so that you guys will get the basic understanding how the component work individually and also with the complex components as well. So here I am creating another Lightning Web Component. Again, I am following the same thing, taking the Control Shift P, selecting the option of create Lightning Web Component and giving the component name as conditional rendering. Click on enter and my component is created here. So what I am doing here is here I am taking one variable. Let's say I'm taking one variable here as display message, and I'm initializing that variable value with false, and I'm initializing this variable value is false. Now on the HTML file, I want to have one checkbox. So whenever the user clicked on that checkbox, I want to show the message. If that checkbox is not clicked, then I want to hide that message, or I want to give the warning to the end user that you are not authorized to see that message. Okay, so that's what I have to do. So again, here I go and add the lightning card, putting a title here as conditional rendering, and putting a icon name as custom 14, and here I go and put the one division tag just to have the space from all the side. I am putting here one division tag, and here I go and put slds around small, so that I will get the padding from all the side. Now here again I am using out of the box components from the Salesforce. Which out of the box component that I have to use for the checkbox? Let me go and show you here again to the component library. As I said, whenever you are working on the lightning web component, always keep this lightning component library with you, because with the help of these small components only we can go and create the complex component. So here I go and putting the input. This time I have to create the input of type checkbox. So here I go and select the input of type checkbox from this drop down. So again, if I scroll down, here you can see we do have the checkbox option here, and these are the different types of checkbox fields that we can create. So you can go and have any type of field from here. So let me go and copy this basic field so that it will show me this basic option. So I'm just copying the code from here and putting it here. What I am doing here is I am copying that code here and putting it here. Now what I want to do here is when my checkbox is checked, I want to show the message. If my checkbox is not checked, I don't want to show that message. So here I go and put the label for the checkbox as display message, right? And here to display that message, here I go and put the another division tag, and let me go and display the message here, right? Welcome to learn LWC from Tech Journey with Ankit. Okay, let's say this is the message that I have to display. But when I have to display that message, whenever the checkbox is checked. So how we can track the checkbox is checked or not? For that, again, I am using here the on change handler, so that whenever the user perform any action on that checkbox, I want my JavaScript function to be executed, and for that I am defining here the change handler. Now let me go and open my JavaScript file here. Again, I'm splitting the screen into the two so that we can see the code side by side. So here I go and put the change handler, and again it's an event, so I'm do have this by default event. In the last session we discussed that whenever we have to access any value from the lightning input, what we use? Event dot target dot value, right? In the, if you guys can recall, in the calculator we discussed that thing. Whenever we have to access any value, we use the event dot target dot value. Yesterday we have done this example, but here we have to access the value from the checkbox, and the checkbox field that does not have any value. The checkbox field have one special attribute, and that attribute is the checked attribute. So whenever anything is checked, that means this checked attribute is available. If the field is unchecked, then this checked attribute is not available. So in our checkbox, to check whether the to check the checkbox, what we have to do? We have to go and populate this value. So what I will do here is I will go and populate the value here as this dot display message is equal to toggle of this dot display message. What this line will do? This line, initially the value for this variable is false, right? When the user clicked on this first time, then what we are doing here is we are populating the not value. That means my this dot display message will be true. If the user again check this checkbox, again this value will be false. So whenever we do this kind of a coding, it is referred as the toggle handling. It is referred as the toggle handling in JavaScript. So what we are doing here is whatever the value that is present, we are passing the opposite value into the variable. Okay, so here initially by the default value is false, but with the help of not, that value will be true. Now what we have to do here is whenever the user check this checkbox, that means this value is true, then and then only we have to display the message. So to display the message conditionally, we discussed that we do have one which uh, option available, that is the LWC if. So here I go and put the LWC, sorry, first I have to go and put template, and here I go and put the LWC if. Now I want to display this message only and only when the value is true. So here I go and put the display message. I want to display this message whenever the value is true. In case the value is false, how to check for the false? You can directly go for the LWC else here. So here I go and use the LWC else to check that value. So here I go and put template LWC else. With LWC else, here I can go and put the another message, that is you are not authorized to see this message. What I am putting here is you are not authorized to see this message. Now let's go and deploy this and check whether our functionality is working as expected or not. So let me quickly go and expose this component. So here I go and put is exposed as true and defining the targets here as the app page. Let me go and deploy this. Right, we do have one checkbox. As soon as user perform the operation on the checkbox, we are performing the toggle and we are populating the toggle value here, and after populating the toggle value, based on this value we are displaying this message. So let me go here and add that component that we have created. So we have created the conditional rendering. I'm just dropping this component here. Let me remove this, and here I go and drop this component. See the default output, default, this checkbox is not checked, right? And so that's why we are getting this message here as you are not authorized to see the message. That's what we are also doing in the code. If that checkbox is not checked, that means this value is false. In case this value is false, we are showing this message, you are not authorized to see this message. If the user go and check this checkbox, then we are showing the message here is welcome to learn the LWC from Tech Journey with Ankit. This is how we can do the conditional rendering in our component. Okay, now let me put one more example here. So for that, let me quickly go here and add another component that we have created yesterday, that is the calculator component. Again, I'm dragging and dropping the calculator component here. We have created this component yesterday. Those who have not attended the yesterday's bootcamp, make sure you guys go over the yesterday's video as well. Okay, so in this, what we are doing here is we are by default showing the output, right? Let's say my business does not want here to show the output unless and until any operation has been performed. As soon as the operation is performed, then and then only the output should come up. So how we can modify our component so that the output should come up only and only when the user have performed this operation or any of the operation. So to do that, I am opening the calculator component that we have created yesterday. What I am doing here is I am creating one variable here, that is the display output, and I am initializing this with the false. What I am doing here is to control that I am creating one variable here, that is the display output, and I am initializing that display output to false. Now here I go and put one condition that we should go and display this output only and only when this value is true. And when this value will be true, whenever the user go and clicked on the button, then and then only we have to set this value to true. So what I am doing here is, as soon as user clicked on this button, I am changing this value here of the display output to true. This is how you can hide the component. This is how you can hide the text whenever the component is initially loading. So here I go and put that condition, again the similar condition that we have put there. So here I go and put template lwc if, and here I go and put the display output, and let me go and put it here, so that my output will be rendered only and only when this value is true. Let me go and deploy this, and we will check the output whether it is working as expected or not. So here I go, refresh the page. You can see that when my component is loading, there is no output available here. Now here I go and put the 8, let's say 7, and clicking on add, then and then only my output is coming here as 15. Then and then only my output is coming here as 15. Okay, I hope the conditional rendering is clear to everyone. Let me go and check if we do have any questions. Uh, Rohit have one question. Here we can use the toggle as well. And he is providing the guidance that in JS file on click. So what will happen if we go and use the toggle here? When the output should be rendered, my requirement here is initially when my component is loading, unless and until user is not taking any action, my output should be hidden. Right? We should go for the toggle whenever we have to switch the values on every input from the user. Here I don't have to switch the output or switch the output on every action of the user, so the toggle functionality will not work here. Here what we have to do here is, initially we have to keep the value as false, so that this value will be false on my initial load, and after that my value will be displayed as soon as user have performed this operation. And after that I'm again not initializing it, because every time the user is going to perform the operation, this value will be available, or user can see the last output. So according to your business requirement, Rohit, you can definitely decide whether you want to go for the toggle or you want to go for the flag based handling. Moving toward the next part, that is rendering the list. How we can go and render the list in our Lightning Web Component. Like most of the times, we have to deal with more than one record in the Lightning Web Component. Let's take an example that you are getting all the accounts from the Salesforce, and you have to display that accounts one after the other in the Lightning Web Component. Another example, for example, let's say you are making the API call to the third party system, and that third party system is returning you an array. So whenever you have to deal with more than one records in the system, we have to render the list on the UI and put the output on the UI. So in Salesforce, with respect to LWC component, we do have two options to render the list. Option number one is by using the for each directive. Option number two is by using the iterator directive. So we do have two options available with respect to the Lightning Web Component whenever we have to render the output on the UI. So first we will go and discuss about how you can render the output by using the for each directive. To render the output using the for each directive, here you have to use the template followed by the for each. In the for each, you will go and specify the array that you have to render. Here you will go and specify the array that you have to render. After that, the for item. In the for item, you can go and accept the current element. In the for item, you go and accept the current element. It is somewhat similar what we do in the Apex. It is somewhat similar what we do in the Apex. In Apex, whenever we go and write down the for loop, how we write down? Let's say I have to render over the account. So we go and put account ACC of account list. Right? This is how we put. This is my collection name. So if I go and compare with this one, sorry, If I go and compare with where is that my ppt, if I go and compare with this one, my contacts are nothing but this account list. Or let me go and put here the contacts only just to avoid the confusion, and here I go and put the contact and followed by the contact. Okay, so these contacts are nothing but this contacts, and this contact is nothing but this contact. So syntax is somewhat similar if you guys have the basic apex knowledge. Here also we do the similar thing. We go and iterate over the values, but this time whenever we have to specify the array, we specify the array with the for each, and whenever we have to deal with the one item from the array, we use the for item. Next thing here is, which is very important whenever you are working on any of the render list, either the for each or the iterator. Immediately whenever you start iterating, here you have to specify the key. Here you have to specify the key, and what value you will pass in the key. The key must be the unique id to each element. The key must be the unique id to each element. So whenever you are working on the loops, you have to make sure that the immediate value that you have to pass here is the key, and the key must be the unique id to each element. Okay, let's go and implement this render list. I will show you two examples how you can render the normal array, and after that also I will show you how you can render the array of objects as well, so that you guys get both understanding how to work with the render list. So here I am creating the lightning web component, and I am giving the name here as the render list demo. So the first what I am doing here is I am creating a normal array. So let me put that normal array name here as superstars. Okay, and here I go and put the superstars as, let's say, Spider-Man, Superman, uh, Batman, Iron Man, Hulk. Okay, let's say for the timing I am putting this many superstars. When you go and practice it, definitely you can put the superstars what you like. Okay, so these are the superstars, and now I have to load these superstars on my HTML file. So how we can do that? So again, I'm splitting the screen here. Let me keep the JavaScript file on the right. So here again, I am putting the lightning card, the similar pattern that we always follow. I am putting the title here, and here I go and put the load primitive array, putting an icon name as custom 14. Okay, and here again I go and create the same div. So let me put class slds where p around small. Okay, slds where p around small. Now here I go and load this value. To load, as we discussed, what we have to use, we have to use the template for each followed by the for item. So here I go and put the template for each. Now in the for each, what value I have to pass? I have to pass the array name. What is my array name here? My array name here is superstars. So here I go and put the superstars. After that, the next thing that I have to pass here is the for item. Now with the for item, we can access one superstar at a time. So here I just go and put the star, for example. Let me just put the star. You can give any name, it's completely up to you. This name must be the array name that you have to render. Item name, you can give any name here. Okay, and now let's say I have to iterate this value one after the other. So to do that, I'm just printing the star here. I'm just printing the star here. But here, if you go and hover over it, you will get one warning, right? As soon as you hover over it and you started using the for each loop, you can see the warning here, missing key for the element. What is the error? Missing key for the element. So whenever you are iterating using the for each, you have to specify the key element here. In my array, right? This time I do have the unique values. So what I am putting here is I am directly putting the key here as the star. I'm directly putting the key here as the star. Okay, now the how we can go and deploy this, again we will do the same thing that we have done previously, so that we can check the output. Here again I'm exposing this component and defining the targets and putting the target here as app page. Let me go and deploy this. Let me go and add this component on the UI. So here I go to the edit page one more time. First, I am taking very simple example so that you guys get the basics. After that, we'll show you how you can deal with the array of objects as well. And that the way we deal with the array of objects is exactly the same we deal with the complex data. So we'll go slowly and steadily. So here my component name is the render list. Okay, I believe I have put the class name correct, incorrect. Here it should be the around underscore small. That's why it was not coming up correctly, but that's fine. You can see here we are getting all these values here one after the other. Okay, now let's say we are dealing with the complex data now. As of now we deal with the very simple data, but many times whenever we are dealing with the apex call, we generally get the complex data. So how to deal with the complex data here? Again, pay close attention for this. So let's say I have to deal with the uh, contact list. For example, let's say I am getting this kind of a contact list whenever I am making the apex call from the lightning web component that eventually we'll do down the line. So for the timing, I'm just hard coding the data here. Let's say I'm putting here the ID value as 1. After that, I am putting here the first name. For example, let's say Mark, and the last name as Benioff. Okay, like this, I will go and create the multiple dummy values here. So here I go and put the dummy values. So let's say second one I am putting here the value as Tim Cook. Third one I am putting the value here as our all favorite Elon Musk. And in the end I am also putting the value here as, you can see intentionally I am putting the IDs here as unique because we have to use that ID as the key. So let's say here I am putting the value as Sundar. Okay, so these are the 4 different values, and now I have to load these 4 different values on my UI. So whenever we deal with the apex, we generally get this kind of a data only. So how you can load the array of objects in your component? So what I am doing here is I am repeating the same, I'm doing the changes in the same component only. So here I go and put the lightning card, putting a title. This time I am doing it for the load complex object, putting an icon name here as custom 14. Here again I go and add some padding. So again I'm copying the same line and putting it here. Okay, now again I have to render the value. So again I am using the same thing, template for each. What is the array that I have to render? Contact list. So here I go and put that array name. That is the contact list. Now coming towards the next thing, what I have to put here is the for item. So here I go and put the for item, and in the for item, let's say I'm giving the name here as contact. So I want to read each contact at a time. That's what I want to do. So here I go and put that. Now the next thing what I have to do here is I have to print the first name and the last name. So let me do this again inside the p tag, and here I go and put the first name. So how to access the first name now? Whenever you have to access any of the property of an object, first you have to use the current item followed by the dot operator and followed by the property name. So here I have to access the first name. So here I am putting the first name and again I have to access the last name. So again I'm putting the current item name followed by the property that I have to access, that is the last name. But again, one thing that I am missing here is the key. So unless and until we don't specify the key, my loop will not work. So here I am specifying the key and my key value will be the ID here. So here I go and put contact.id, contact.id. So this is how I have created the dummy data, and here I am loading this dummy data on my UI. Let's go and deploy this component as well, and we will check the output. So let me go and refresh this. So you can see that my complex component is also loading as expected. My complex component is also loading as expected. Right? This is how you can work with the for each loop to load the primitive array as well as to load the complex object. Let me go and check if we do have any questions. Folks, if you do have any type of question, utilize this time and ask. Okay, I can see all good for now. So let me move forward with the next thing. The another way of iterating, that is by using the iterator. Now the question comes, when the user should go for the iterator and when the user should go for the for each, because both will do the same thing, both will go and render the list. So a specific scenario where you should go for the iterator is whenever you have to apply a special behavior to the first or the last item in the list. Whenever you have to apply the special behavior to the first or last item in the list. The advantage that you get with the iterator here is, with the help of iterator, you get two special variable. First is the it.first and second is the it.last. With the help of these boolean variables, it.first and the it.last, you can identify which is your first component and which is your last component. With the help of this iterator, you can go and identify what is your first component and what is your last component. Let's say you want to print some header before printing the first component. You can do that with the help of iterator. You want to do some processing as soon as the last component is loaded, right? Then you can go for the iterator, because here we do get two special variable which is not available with the for each. In the for each loop, you cannot identify the component that you are iterating is the first element or the last element. But with the help of iterator, with the help of these two special variables, you can easily identify whether it is the first item in the list or it is the last item in the list. Now, how to use the iterator? To use the iterator, again, you have to use the template followed by the iterator. And here you go and specify the iterator name. Here you go and specify the iterator name. Iterator name can be anything. Generally, people follow the practice. They put the iterator name as IT, but you can, if you want, you can give any iterator name here. Okay, followed by the array that you have to iterate. Followed by the array that you have to iterate. Now the next thing here is, I am here again you have to go and specify the key like we did in the previous one. In the for each loop we have specified the key. Here again you have to specify the key, and like I said previously, here also the key will be unique. Another key thing that you should note here is, whenever we are accessing the value here from the array, here we have to use the iterator name, that is the IT, followed by the value. Whenever we have to access the value from the array, we have to use the iterator name followed by the value and then the property name. So you can see writing this iterator is bit complex as compared to for each. Okay, now coming towards the next one is the it.first. In the it.first, you can, with the help of this it.first, by using this in combination with the LWC if, you can identify the element that you are iterating is the first element or the last element. You only have the two values for this. You cannot identify any element from the middle. You can only identify the first element and the last element here. So what we will do now here is we will go and try to do the same thing. We'll try to iterate the similar array with the iterator now. So again, I am creating another lightning card here just to show you how we can use the iterator. So here I am putting the title, and here I put load complex object using iterator. Here again I go and put the same icon name. Okay, here again I am putting the same division class so that we do have spacing from all the sides. But this time I will not iterate with the for each. This time I am using the iterator, iterator, iterator it. Again, as I said, you can give any name, but generally people follow the practice. They give the name as it. Now here you have to specify which array you want to iterate. So here I want to iterate the contact list. So here I go and specify the contact list. As simple as this. Okay, now as soon as we use the iterator, as we discussed, we have to specify the key. So here you go and specify the key here. So what will be the key here? How you can access the key? Whenever you have to access any value with the help of iterator, first you have to specify the iterator name. In this example, I put the iterator name as it. So here I should go and specify the it followed by the value and followed by the property name that you want to identify as the unique value. So in this scenario, I want to identify the unique value with the ID. Okay. After that, in case you want to identify the first element, so here you go and use the div, let's say LWC if, because to check the condition we use the LWC if, and here to identify the first value, here you go and use the it dot first. Similarly, to identify the last value, here you can go and use the it dot last. Okay, for what we will do here is, let's say if it is the first element, before having the first element we go and add one border before the first, and after that, after printing the last element also, we will go and add some border here. So what I am doing here is I am creating one CSS file. We already discussed in the previous session how to deal with the CSS file. So here I go and put the CSS file, and I am putting the name of the CSS file here as list first. The class name I am putting here the list first, and here I go and put the class name as the list last. You can give any name here. Now, as I am using the class and I have to go and define the external CSS here, I hope you guys are cleared how we can work with the external CSS. We already discussed this in detail. So here I go and put the render list.css. Now these are the two classes that I have to go and create. So here I go and put the list.first in my CSS file. And similarly here I go and put the another one, that is the list.last. These are the two CSS. Now in both the CSS, what I have to do, I have to add some border. So here I go and add the border. So let me put here border top. Before printing the first element, I want to add the border. My border will be of 1 pixel size. It will be of solid, and let me put the color as black border. Okay, and also I want to add some padding from the top. So let me go and add some padding from the top. Let's say I want to put the padding here as 5 pixel. Similar thing, I want to do this for the last element as well. Here I go and put the border bottom. Okay, here again I am putting the 1 pixel border, solid, as well as the color is black again. And here I go and put the padding from the bottom, and let's say I want to put the padding as 5 pixel. Okay, so whenever the first element, before printing the output from the first element, what it will do, it will go and apply this class. Okay, now after applying the border, it have to go and also print the items as well. So again we'll do the same thing, how to access the value. So here I go and put the p tag, and here we go and access the value like we have done here. We have printed the first name as well as the last name. So but for the iterator we have to use the iterator name followed by the value followed by the property name that we have to access. Similarly, to access the last name, iterator name followed by the value followed by the property name that we have to access, that is the last name. This is how we can go and print the value by using the iterator. Right, I have applied the some CSS here for the first and the last element, and here I am printing the value as well. Let's go and deploy this and we will check the output. So here I go and refresh the component. You can see here for this component now I do have the border. That is the only difference that I have made. We are again getting the similar kind of output, but before printing the first element I want this border should come up, and after printing the last element also I want this border should come up. So whenever you do have that kind of a requirement where you have to do some additional processing for the first and the last element, you can go and use the iterator. Now let me go and check if we do have any question. There's a question from Nagaraja. He's asking, why are you using the ID for contact list in the key attribute, sir? In stars, you didn't use, but contact list, you use ID. May I know the reason? So, Nagaraja, the reason I have used the ID here but not here, because here I want to show you an example how to deal with the primitive data types. For example, let's say you are making any apex call and you are making any third party call and you are getting the primitive data. So how you can print the primitive data? But before you go and print the primitive data, you have to make sure that the values are unique in your array, right? But here, whenever we are making any apex call, we generally get the ID from the salesforce, and the salesforce IDs are always unique, right? I just want to put the similar scenario, the kind of a data that we get whenever we make the apex call, and that's why I have used the ID here. You can use anything. It's not like you have to only use the ID. If you want, you can give the name as contact ID, but generally when the salesforce return the data, salesforce will only return the ID, and that's why I have used the ID, just to have the similar kind of a data what we get when we make the apex call. I hope this answers your question, Nagaraja. Okay, let's move toward the next point, that is the query selector. Now, what is query selector? Query selector is something whenever you have to access the elements from the DOM. We already discussed about the query selector in our JavaScript session as well. So whenever you have to access any elements from the DOM, then you go and use the query selector. And whenever you have to access more than one element from the DOM, you go and use the query selector all. It is the standard way to access the elements from the DOM. If you go to any programming language, like if you go to the Node.js or the AngularJS, everywhere, whenever they have to access any element from the DOM, they use this method because these methods come from the JavaScript. The only difference here is when we work with the JavaScript, we use the document.querySelector. But as our LWC components, they works under the shadow DOM. Here we have to use the this dot template dot query selector. Next key point here is with respect to the query selector, we should not use any ID selector. With respect to the query selector here is you should not use the ID selector here. You can select the component with the help of tag. You can select the component with the help of class, but you should not select the component with the help of ID. Okay. Next point about here is, let's say you are accessing the multiple components here. Again, the query selector does not guarantee that the components that you are accessing, it will come in the same order. In case you are accessing more than one component at a time, then it will not guarantee that the sequence in which you are accessing the component or the sequence in which the component is available on your UI, it will come in the same sequence to the JavaScript file. Okay, now coming towards the implementation part, pay close attention on this example here. Okay, in the first line, what I am doing here is I am accessing the div element here. I am accessing the div element here. So how many div elements are available here? 1 and 2. But here which method I am using? I am using here the query selector. So whenever we go and use the query selector, okay, it will always return the first element. Although I do have the two elements here, but it will return only the first element. I am clear? Although I do have the two elements here, but it will only return the first element whenever we are using the query selector. In case the element that you want to access, for example, in this example, I want to access the span. I want to access the span, but the span element is not available here. In case I want to access an element, but that element is not available, here we get the value as null. In case you want to access an element, but that element is not there, then you get the value as null. In last, we do have another method, that is the query selector all. So whenever we use the query selector all, we'll get all the instances of the selector. We will get all the instances of the selector. So this is how the selector is coming up. You can see here, I do have the two elements, first and second. I am getting here the array. So what the query selector all will return, generally if you go and check the data type, it is of node list, but or we have to ideally convert that into the array, right? But syntactically it is looking somewhat similar to array. So your query selector all, it always returns the node list, and your query selector, it will only return one single element at a time. Okay, now what we will do here is we will see one quick implementation how we can use the query selector with the lightning web component, and also I will show you how we can apply the dynamic CSS to our component as well. So that's what we have to do. Let me quickly put the scenario. I will go and create one class, and in that class what I will do here is I will go and put some text. Okay, now what I want here is my text color should be changed by using the query selector dynamically. So here I go to my component again, Control Shift P. So I am creating a lightning web component. Let me give the component name here as the dynamic CSS. Okay, so what I want to do here is let me open my HTML file. In my HTML file, I am putting one lightning card, putting a title as dynamic CSS, putting an icon, sorry I misspell it, LIGHTNING, icon name I am putting here as custom 14, and here I go and put div class slds var p around small, and here I go and put the one text, that is the uh, welcome to learn LWC from Tech Journey with Ankit. Okay, one normal text that I have put here, but here I am not specifying any class name. What I want here is that class name should be populated dynamically. That class name should be populated here dynamically. So here I go and put the class name as, let me give the class name here as div color. I'm just putting the, or let me put the class name here as p color. As we are applying some color to the p tag, I am putting here the class name as p color. Okay, now the next thing that I do have here is I do have the multiple buttons. I do have the multiple buttons here. So let's say here my first button here is uh, lightning button, and here I'm putting the first button here as label add CSS variant. I am putting here as the brand, and on click what I am doing here is add CSS handler. Like this I am creating the multiple buttons. Let me also add some space in between the buttons. So here I go and put slds where p around small. So here I go and just repeat this block. One will add the button, one will add the CSS, second will remove the CSS. I am putting the method name here as remove, and the third one will just go and toggle the CSS. So here I go and put the toggle CSS handler. Very simple. One div with multiple buttons, and one button will go and add the CSS, second button will go and remove the CSS, and third button will go and toggle that CSS. Okay, so we will see one by one how we can add the CSS, remove the CSS, as well as toggle the CSS. So as I have to work with the CSS here I go and create one file inside this component, and I am putting that file name as the .css file. Let's say I do have the CSS file here. So here I go and put first one as the blue color, and here I go and put the uh, background color for this as the, let's say I'm putting the background color here as, what color should be good? Let me go and put the background color here as the chocolate color. So let me just go and change the name here as chocolate color. Okay, now another thing that I am putting up here is the, I'm putting two different classes because I want to show a specific example to you. So let's say here I am putting the green border as my second class name, and in this class I am putting one border. So let me go and put here the border, and I want the border should be solid and let's say of green color. Okay, border, it should be of solid as well as the green color. So these are the two different classes that I do have in my CSS file. Now what we will do here is we will go and see how we can add the dynamic CSS, remove the dynamic CSS. Before we go and do that, the one way of applying the dynamic CSS here is, there are different ways that you can apply the dynamic CSS. First I will show you the very simple way. So you can see here I put the class name as the property name. In the property name, what you can do here is you can directly pass your CSS class name. What you can do here is you can directly pass your CSS class name. Before I again go and do that, let me just go and deploy this component so that we can observe all the changes one after the other. Putting the targets here as the target and the app page. I'm not applying any CSS for now. I just want to show you how that component is coming up. So let me quickly go here, click on the edit page. Click on save. You can see here, as of now, there is no CSS applied to this component. As of now, there is no CSS applied to this component. Now what I have to do here is when the component is loading at the same time I have to apply the CSS. So one way of applying the CSS is by directly putting the class name to the property name. So let me go and open the JavaScript file here. So what I am doing here is, to this property, that is the p color property that we do have, I am directly passing the CSS class name as the chocolate color. I am directly passing here the class name as chocolate color, right? Let me go and deploy this now one more time. So you will see that now when the component is loading, whatever the value that we are passing, accordingly the CSS will be applied here. So let me go and refresh it now. You can see that what happened here is my whatever the CSS that I have passed here, that CSS is already applied here. That CSS is already applied here. Now coming towards the next point. Now the next that what I have to do here is I have to go and as soon as I clicked on the add class button, whatever the default CSS that has been applied, I have to go and apply the additional CSS. Right? Let's say the additional CSS that I do have in my CSS file is the green border. So as soon as user clicked on the add button, I have to apply this green border. As soon as user clicked on the remove button, I have to take out that green border. And as soon as user clicked on the toggle, then I have to toggle that CSS. Simple behavior. Let's go and check this practically how we can implement it. So here I go and put the add CSS handler. Again, we do have the event here. Similarly, you can go and define all these methods one after the other. You can do in one single method like we have done yesterday. That is also possible. So here I go and put the event, and for the toggle handler, here I go and put the toggle handler as well. Okay, so add CSS handler, remove CSS handler as well as the toggle CSS handler. Now, first thing what we have to do, on which component we have to apply the CSS. Whenever you have to apply the CSS in your JavaScript file, first you have to go and retrieve that component. So in my scenario, I have to apply that CSS on this P tag. So what I will do here is I will go and retrieve this P tag here. So let me go and take let element is equal to, how you can retrieve any element. Just now we discussed by using here this dot template dot query selector. What is the selector here that we have to apply? That is the P selector. What is the selector that we have to apply here is the P selector. So on this P selector, I have to go and apply the dynamic CSS. So to add the CSS, exists already one CSS is present here. If you go and hover over this, you will see that already one CSS chocolate color is available here. Now on this, I have to go and add additional CSS. So whenever you have to add any additional CSS on the component, what you will do here is you will go and put the element on which you have to add the CSS followed by the class list. Right? It will give you all the list of CSS that on which you have to perform the operation, and to add here you go and put the add. To put the add here you go and put the add. Like we go and add any element in the list by using the add. Similarly here also to add the element in the list we have to use the add. And now what CSS that we have to add here? We have to add the CSS here as the green border. So here I go and put the green border. Here I go and put the green border. Similarly, like we have done the addition, whenever we have to do the removal, again the first step will be exactly same. We have to first go and get the element, like we get the element here. Here also we have to go and get the element. After that, to remove the CSS, what we have to do here is, here we just have to use the remove method. It will remove this CSS available on your class list. And the next one, let's say you want to toggle that CSS, you want to add, remove conditionally, so that you want to perform the toggle operation. For that, we do have another method to toggle that CSS is the toggle CSS. To toggle that CSS is the toggle CSS. Okay, so let's go and deploy this and check the output, how the CSS can be added, how the CSS can be removed, and how the CSS can be toggled based on the button click. You can replace this button click with any of this condition as well. So my component is deployed. Let me go and refresh this component. Right, so here if I go and click on the add class, you guys can see a border is added of the green color. I'm not sure if you guys can see here. You can see that a border is added of the green color. Similarly, if you click on the remove, you can see that the border is removed from here. Similarly, if you go and toggle here, the border can be added as well as removed. A border can be added as well as removed. This is how you can apply the dynamic CSS. One more approach that few of the developers do follow to apply the dynamic CSS is by using the getter method as well. Once we go and move further progress, I will take few more examples how you can apply the dynamic CSS by using the getter method too. But I hope you guys got the understanding how you can use the query selector in the code and how you can apply the dynamic CSS to your LWC component as well. We will use all these concepts together in our tomorrow's mini project where we go and create the to-do application. We'll try to implement the conditional rendering. We'll try to use the rendering list. We will see how you can apply the dynamic CSS. We will see all the previous concepts that we have learned. Moreover, we'll also see how you can validate the input, perform the dragging and the dropping, and how you can manipulate the array in your LWC component. So stay tuned for the tomorrow's mini project. It's going to be definitely be bit extended, but it will be definitely helpful whenever you are working on the Lightning Web component. Let me check if we do have any question. There is one question from Shivani. Sir, why is it required to use the key for loop in LWC? Is there any specific reason? Yes, Shivani, there is a reason because the way LWC works here is with the help of the key, LWC will track on which particular element the action has been performed. For example, here if I go and open the rendering list example here, let me go and close other tabs, open the HTML file here. So what the LWC will do by using this key attribute here, LWC will track on which particular record you have performed the operation. So next time whenever the LWC component have to render the list, LWC will internally track and render only that component rather than rendering the complete list. So the key reason here we have to specify the key attribute for the performance benefit, right? Because in case you are performing any modifications on this element, then with the help of this key attribute, LWC framework will come to know that this particular item needs to be re-rendered. I hope I answer your question, Shivani. Let me know in the chat box. Do anyone have any other question, folks? Again, I thank you all for joining today's session. We will meet tomorrow and work on our mini project, that is the to-do app manager. Thank you for joining. In case you folks like the session, make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you. Have a good time. Bye bye.